This one piece of paper made me $18,000 without me ever buying the house, swinging a hammer, or using a dime of my own money. It's called an assignment contract, and it's the foundation of wholesaling real estate, which is one of my favorite strategies to make money in real estate. In the next few minutes, I'm gonna walk you through our assignment contract template line by line so you'll know how to use this profit generating tool with confidence and ease. Better yet, I'm giving you a copy of this exact assignment contract so that you can download it right now, pull it up on your device, and learn with me as we walk through it together. Then you'll be ready to use it in your real estate business. Hey, I'm Ryan Zomorodi, and I'm a real estate investor and the co-founder of realestateskills.com, where we've helped thousands of people start and grow profitable real estate investing businesses all around the country. Be sure to click the link in the description to download your free copy of our assignment contract now so you can get the most out of this video lesson, or simply go to realestateskills.com/contracts to get your free copy. I'll also be covering what an assignment contract is and how does an assignment of contract work. What is an assignment fee and how do you actually get paid your assignment fee at closing? Plus, I'll be pulling up your questions from our Real Estate Skills YouTube community and I'll be answering them here in this video. So if you've asked questions on our videos before, stick around to see if your question was selected. And if you have any additional questions as we go through this video lesson, be sure to ask them in the comments. So this is the exact assignment of contract form we use with our students and in our wholesale real estate business, where we're closing deals all across the country in different states. In fact, I recently used this exact form to close a virtual wholesale deal and earn an $18,000 assignment fee without ever going to the property. I signed a purchase contract with the seller, who's an owner of the property. Then I used this exact agreement with my cash buyer. Once I had both contracts signed, I sent both of them to the title company and I got paid at closing with the wire transferred to my bank account. We'll get more into exactly how contract assignments work later in the video, but let me walk you through our assignment contract line by line and explain it here in great detail. So in this first section, it says this assignment addendum, which is known as the assignment, is between the assignor and the assignee. So you as the wholesaler are the assignor. So you want to put your name or your business entity, if you're using an LLC to wholesale, that's going to go right here. And so you want to make sure that this matches what's on your purchase agreement. So the buyer on your purchase agreement, which is you, is now the assignor on this assignment addendum. And the assignee in the next line, that is going to be the end buyer, right? This is who you're transferring your rights to under this assignment contract. So again, this might be referred to as your end buyer, your cash buyer, your investor. So whoever the contract is going to is considered the assignee. So further, it says the assignor and assignee, when mentioned together, may be referred to as the parties, right? So this whole section here in the beginning is all about establishing the parties to this contract. Now moving on, this just establishes a date as to when the purchase agreement was formed. So every purchase agreement has a formation date, and that's what we are referring to right here. So simply just put the date, the number, as well as the month here, and then whatever year that you obviously are referring to. So it says on the, let's call it first day of January of 2030, the assigner entered into a purchase agreement with the seller, right? So here's where you put the seller's name. So again, you want to match your purchase agreement to make sure that this assignment addendum is properly reflecting your purchase agreement. So make sure you put all of the sellers involved if there are multiple sellers. So pretty simple, the sellers go here. It says with the sellers and the assignor as buyers, right? Remember, the assignor is the buyer on the purchase agreement for rights to purchase the property located at, and then here's where you put the property address. So you put the street address, the number, and the street name, the city, as well as the state here. Pretty self-explanatory. Make sure you get the property address correct here. Now, further, it says a copy of the agreement has been attached and can be furnished upon request. Assignor wishes to sell their rights and interest in the purchase agreement, and the assignee wishes to buy all of the assignor's rights and interests and accepts receiving title and interest in the property. In exchange, the assignee agrees to be responsible for and paying the assignor an assignment fee of, and You guys guessed it, this is where you put your assignment fee. So this is the total amount that you're going to be charging your end buyer for the right to take over the purchase agreement. So this is called your assignment fee, your wholesale fee. This is how you get paid as a wholesaler. So you'll simply put the dollar amount, you'll spell it out in plain and simple English, and then you'll also write it out in terms of the numbers, right? The numeric representation of that dollar amount, right? So if it's $20,000, you would write 20,000 here, and then you'd put 2 followed by 5 zeros, and then another 2 zeros for the decimal points here. So just be specific there. Again, in exchange, the assignee agrees to be responsible for and paying the assignor an assignment fee of, let's say, $20,000 on or before the closing or settlement date. If the assignment fee is paid at closing and through escrow, this fee shall be made out to the assignor on the HUD settlement statement. So again, how do you get paid as a wholesaler? When you send this agreement to the title company, your assignment fee becomes a line item on the settlement statement so that when your buyer's funding the transaction, a portion of the proceeds that they're paying to escrow, right, the funds that they're sending to the title company, the escrow company, part of that goes to you to pay your fee. So you get paid directly through title according to this agreement. Furthermore, the assignee agrees to pay a non-refundable deposit to the assignor due at the execution of this assignment of, and then here's where you can put a non-refundable deposit. So this section is optional, but we do like to use this so that the assignee, right, your cash buyer, has to put up some money in order for this assignment addendum to be valid. Otherwise, you can put a 0 here and you're still assigning the contract to them, but then the only money you're going to receive is going to be paid at closing. So this is optional. Again, this isn't where you put your assignment fee. This is a non-refundable deposit due at the time that they actually sign this assignment addendum. So this is a credit towards the assignment fee. Okay, and so let's just finish this and I'll explain what that means. So at the execution of assignment of, let's call it $5,000, which is refundable only if the title is not clear and conveyable. The deposit is a credit towards the assignment fee. This assignment is not effective until the deposit is paid and both parties sign this assignment addendum. So this just means that this would be refundable to your buyer if the seller could not convey clear and conveyable title, right? It means that if there's liens that the seller cannot clear, if there are clouds on title that cannot be resolved before closing, then you and the end buyer can walk away and get your deposit back. So because the seller cannot perform on their end, so it's no harm to us. Obviously, we want the deal to close, but that's when everyone gets their earnest money deposit back. So does the buyer. So that's all good. And then the deposit is a credit towards the assignment fee. So let's say your assignment fee is $20,000 up here, but then you ask for $5,000 at the time of this contract formation here. So that means you're going to get paid $5,000 and then $15,000 at closing. So the balance would be due at closing. And so, why do we have this non-refundable deposit here? Is because sometimes buyers don't perform on their contract. Even when we assign them the contract, they might not close for one reason or another. So they might get cold feet, maybe their funding falls through, maybe they bought a different deal and they don't want the property anymore. So this is our way of still getting paid, because if we've paid for the earnest money deposit, for example, and that's already non-refundable to the seller, which may or may not be the case. Maybe you paid for an inspection, a survey, an appraisal, right? You may have had some fees or maybe not. But either way, you're getting some money coming to you. And so you might even be able to profit from this deal, even if the transaction never even closes. So there are a number of reasons why we have this in here, but it's going to protect you and your interests and make sure that you get paid, even if the deal doesn't go through. So use it as you will. So moving on, terms and conditions. The parties agree to the following terms and conditions. Assignee is agreeing to all terms, clauses, and conditions of the purchase agreement, and by executing this assignment below is agreeing to be liable for any and all of the assigner's obligations and liabilities in the purchase agreement. Further, assignee hereby agrees to indemnify and hold assignor harmless from any claims, fees, expenses, costs, demands, liabilities, or obligations related to this agreement, the purchase agreement, and the property. So this is some legal language to protect you as the wholesaler. We have this in here just to make sure that we are indemnified and we release liability, and that the assignee, right, our cash buyer, is assuming all of the responsibilities under the original purchase agreement. This next section here, this is where we put the closing date that is on the purchase agreement, right? So this solidifies the end buyer's timeline as to when they need to perform. So assignee hereby agrees to close on the property per the purchase agreement on or before this date. So this is where you can put the close of escrow date to match your purchase agreement. So pretty simple there. If assignee doesn't close by this date, assignor should have the right in their sole discretion to terminate this agreement, assign the purchase agreement to a third party, purchase the property, and take legal action against assignee for any and all damages or liability this causes. Okay? So this gives you as the wholesaler the right to reassign this property to a third party. So, right, if this end buyer doesn't perform, you can take back the contract and assign it to someone else, and you can even keep their deposit, right? We don't want that to happen, but in case that they can't perform, we get the contract back. So, hey, maybe we want to take it down ourselves and fix and flip it or hold it as a rental. So this just allows us some options in case our buyer doesn't perform. Further, assignee agrees to forfeit their deposit to assignor. Should assignor fail to act timely and take the above actions, the parties agree that the assignor retains and is not waiving said rights and interests. So this is all legal language to protect you as the wholesaler, to keep the deposit, and ultimately make sure things are moving forward. And if not, we have a backup plan. And then lastly, assignee has reviewed the purchase agreement, and assignee fully understands the terms and conditions of this assignment addendum. Okay. And then here is where you will sign. Again, you are the assignor if you're the wholesaler, and then the assignee is now signing and dating where it says the assignee, right? That's where your cash buyer signs. So that's the rundown of the assignment addendum. So again, this form legally transfers your rights in the original purchase contract to the new buyer. It's how you get paid without ever owning the property. We've pre-filled most of the legal language to make this easy for you. So once you've got it download, review it with your attorney, title company, or closing attorney to make sure it fits your state's requirements. If you want a detailed walkthrough of our purchase agreement that is designed for wholesaling, be sure to check out my other video where I run through our purchase contract line by line and explain every single clause in plain and simple English. I highly suggest that you watch it if you're still learning how to effectively use real estate contracts. Let's back up for a second and talk about the fundamentals of contract assignments, as well as some questions that I get from new wholesalers all the time. What is an assignment of contract exactly? It's when you put a property under contract with a seller at an attractive price, and instead of buying it yourself, you assign your rights in the contract to another buyer for a profit. For example, you get a house under contract for $200,000 using a purchase and sale agreement. This is a contract between you and a property owner. Then you assign that contract using this assignment contract to another investor for $210,000. At closing, the seller gets paid, the buyer gets the property, and you walk away with a $10,000 assignment fee. That's wholesaling in a nutshell. What is an assignment fee? An assignment fee is the difference between what you agreed to pay the seller and what your end buyer agrees to pay for the property. It can be a flat fee added onto the original purchase price or a markup, whatever you negotiate it to be. Either way, that's your profit for bringing the deal together. I always try to shoot for at least a $10,000 to $20,000 assignment fee. But if I have a great deal on my hands where the end buyer can potentially make over 6 figures in profit by fixing and flipping the house or developing the property, then I know I can charge a much higher wholesale fee than that. So what are the steps to assign a contract? Here's how an assignment of contract works from start to finish. First, you find a motivated seller and put their property under contract. You include and or assigns next to your name in the purchase agreement and make sure you understand all of the terms in the contract. Then you find a cash buyer or an investor to assign the deal to. You then use our assignment of contract form to transfer your rights under the original purchase agreement to your new buyer. Once you have both contracts fully executed, submit both contracts to your title company or closing attorney. Then on closing day, you get paid your assignment fee without ever closing on the property, spending money on repairs, or taking out a loan. Then you just simply rinse and repeat. So let's talk about how to find properties to assign. You don't need a big budget to find deals that you can wholesale. Here are 4 of my favorite ways. The best way is to search the MLS for fixer-uppers or distressed listings. There are always new deals hitting the market, and good deals move quick, so you have to know how to work the system to get the best deals. You can also knock on doors in up-and-coming neighborhoods. If you spot a distressed house, or if you see a moving truck in the driveway, that can indicate a motivated seller and a potential opportunity to score a deal. Another method to find wholesale properties is to send direct mail to absentee owners, landlords, or recently inherited property owners. You can also call on properties that are advertised for rent, since those are primarily owned by investors and the owner's phone number is often right on the listing. We teach our students how to do all of this and more inside our Ultimate Investor program without spending any money on expensive marketing campaigns. Let's talk about submitting offers and securing your end buyer. Once you find a deal, submit your offer with enough room to include your assignment fee and still leave enough room for profit for the cash buyer. This requires you to analyze the deal from the lens of your end buyer. Does the property work for a profitable fix and flip? Is it better suited for a buy and hold rental property? Or perhaps its highest and best value would go to a developer who plans to tear down the structure and build something completely new. The better your understanding of these exit strategies, the better wholesaler you'll be. Once you have an accepted offer, start connecting with investors and cash buyers. If a buyer likes the property, use the assignment of contract to seal the deal and lock in your fee. If a buyer asks to see the original purchase agreement, that's all right, but feel free to black out your purchase price. If the deal works for them and they're happy with the wholesale price, your assignment fee really shouldn't matter. Most experienced real estate investors know that paying wholesalers is just a cost of doing business. Plus, they want to get more deals from you in the future, right? You're helping them make money. Once both contracts are signed, send them to your title company. They'll coordinate the paperwork, facilitate the funding, and the closing of your deal. So what are some pros of assigning contracts? Here's why assigning contracts is one of the best entry points into real estate. You can start wholesaling with no money out of pocket. There are no fees involved with assigning a contract, and if you structure it the right way, your end buyer will fund the earnest money deposit. That means you can truly do a wholesale deal and make money in real estate without putting up a dime. Another amazing factor is that you get paid as soon as the deal closes. Wholesalers get paid at closing, as opposed to when you're fixing and flipping a house or even buying a rental property. With those strategies, you get paid weeks, months, and maybe even over a year after you close on the property. Also, you don't take on the risks and headaches of managing renovations or working with tenants. And ask me how I know. There can be a lot of headaches and problems when you're managing contractors and renting properties out to tenants. Yet it can still be extremely rewarding. Assigning contracts is how thousands of beginners close their first deal and how many of our real estate skills students start their own companies with low risk and high profit margins. It's not all upside though. Here are some of the cons to assigning contracts. When you assign the contract to a cash buyer, you are leaving a lot of profit on the table compared to fixing and flipping or buying and holding over a longer time horizon. The larger profits in real estate are there for the investors who buy properties and follow through with the bigger business plan, especially those who hold properties for the long term. Also, your assignment fee is taxed as ordinary income. This means you have no long-term tax benefits like with holding rental properties. That's why it's great to also buy rentals in addition to wholesaling so that you can create some paper losses to offset your active income. Another major con to this strategy is that you're really only as good as your cash buyers. If you as a wholesaler have picky buyers who need to hit a home run on every single deal, you're probably not going to do many deals. Your offers as a wholesaler can only be as strong as the buyers you're able to flip the deals to. And remember, some states have restrictions on assignments. Always know your local laws. Let's talk about assignments versus double closings. So what's the difference between an assignment of contract and a double closing? With assignments, you don't ever take title or own the property. There are little to no fees involved when assigning contracts. They are faster and simpler transactions since there's only one escrow and one closing that occurs. With double closings, you actually buy and then resell the property often on the same day. You'll need transactional funding or pass-through funding to close the deal and then resell it to the next buyer. This means you'll pay more in closing costs and potentially get squeezed on your profit, but double closing makes more sense when assignments aren't allowed or when you want to keep your profit discreet, or even when you just have a much larger profit to absorb those added costs. And some states even require double closing, so again, do your due diligence. Now, before we wrap up, I'm going to pull some of the questions we've received directly from you guys, our YouTube community, about assignment contracts for wholesaling. So the first question is from Christian Sansoris Delgado. Do you add closing and agent commission to the assignment price of the end buyer, or is it just accepted offer price plus fee equals assignment price? So great question. The answer is no. Closing costs and agent commissions do not get taken out of your assignment fee or impact it whatsoever. If there are real estate agents involved in your wholesale transaction, their commissions are typically tied to the sales price of the original contract. Your assignment fee is money paid on top of the actual sales price. So their commission is not based on the higher wholesale price that your end buyer ultimately pays for the property. The next question is from Igor257. How will I assign a contract since the purchase agreement from the realtor is not assignable and my fee is $5,000? Well, Igor, many of the contracts we use when wholesaling properties from the MLS are the local realtor contracts. Most, if not all of these contracts allow assignments. However, you often need the seller's permission when assigning the contract. For example, the contract that I'm most familiar with in California is the residential purchase agreement, since I'm a licensed real estate agent in California and I've used it quite often. This is what all of the realtors in California use. There's language in this purchase agreement that states buyer shall not assign this agreement without first having obtained the separate written consent of seller to a specified assignee. Such consent shall not be unreasonably withheld. So this language is very similar to the realtor contracts that we see in other states that I've used. And the good news is that we still assign these contracts all the time, in most cases using this exact assignment contract that I've shared with you today. All you have to do is get the seller to approve of the assignment and then sign your assignment contract as well. What matters most is how you approach this situation and how you actually go about having these conversations. What you don't want to say to the realtor is, hey realtor, I'm about to wholesale this contract to some random buyer I found in some Facebook group that I've never met. I hope it works out. Please sign and approve this assignment so I can make my fee and move on. Good luck. Compare that to if you said, hey seller, hey agent, we're very excited to be moving forward on this property. My partner and I decided to close this transaction and take title in our other LLC. Since my partner's bringing the capital, we decided to best to close in her LLC. Could you please have the seller sign off on this addendum so we can change our name on the transaction, forward this to title, and proceed towards closing? Which do you think would be more effective and professional? Next question is from Doodle-A, an awesome name by the way, Doodle-A. The question is, so just use the original contract as the assignment contract, but just blot out the name and the original price? Also, how do I get paid? I get it's the difference, but how do I set up the payment? All right, so let's unpack that. So the original contract is the purchase agreement. Your rights to that purchase agreement transfer to a new buyer using this assignment contract. In exchange for the privilege of getting those rights to your purchase agreement, your end buyer agrees to pay you an assignment fee. Before they commit to buying the deal, they will probably want to see the original contract. That's where you can cross out the purchase price on the purchase agreement if you want to hide the price that you have the property under contract. You don't need to black out your name necessarily. For the payment, there are several options on how you can get paid for your wholesale deal. The simplest way is to include your fee on the assignment contract and then send that contract to the title company. Once the end buyer closes and funds the transaction, your fee is listed as a line item on the settlement statement, and the title company will either wire you the money directly to your bank account or they can mail you a check. It's really up to you. Another way is to leave your assignment fee blank on the assignment contract, and then you can get paid by your buyer outside of escrow. We provide agreements for this scenario to our real estate skills students so that they can structure this the right way, which helps if you just want to keep your assignment fee as a zero so that the seller and the real estate agents don't see you making money off of this assignment. However, you earn a consulting fee or an acquisition fee from your buyer, which is paid outside of escrow. Either one is fine, so it's really up to you how you want to structure it. These are the situations where it's invaluable to have a coach to help you through if you're not 100% sure what you're doing. Next up is Malachi Curtis. In your assignment contract, it says for the property located at blank with a legal description of blank, what goes in the blank spot after with a legal description of? So legal descriptions are unique identifiers of properties. Usually they tell you what the lot number is or the blocks or what subdivision a property is located in. They can be long descriptions and sometimes they're hard to find. And honestly, most purchase agreements don't include the full legal description in the original purchase contract. If you want to find the actual legal description, talk to a title company. They'll be able to quickly find it for you. Otherwise, I just recommend putting in the assessor's parcel number or APN, which you can find on Redfin, the MLS, or on the property tax assessor's website. That should be more than good for this purpose. Aberrant Art asks, can an end buyer use a conventional loan or FHA loan if we assign them the contract? Well, the short answer is yes, they can. However, it depends on the purchase agreement. Did you tie up a property with an offer that includes financing? Most wholesale investor offers are all cash, so it would be harder to shift from a cash offer to financing while you're in escrow. However, it's certainly possible. Let's say you did tie up a property that has a loan contingency and financing is allowed under the purchase agreement. You can assign that contract to a buyer who will either close with cash or financing, according to the same terms of that contract. The potential issue is that the buyer will most likely have to pay your assignment fee out of pocket. FHA and conventional lenders don't typically allow assignment fees to be rolled into the loan amount. Therefore, the buyer just has to be okay with adding your assignment fee to the amount of cash they were going to put down to close on the property anyways. It's basically just a closing cost and totally worth it to them if they're getting a great deal. All right, so Mrs. Giles Carvin asks, if the agent decides to bypass you and go directly to the investor, how would they know who my investor would be though? So great question. An agent couldn't bypass you if you have the property under contract. That's the power of putting deals in escrow, since you're the only one who would have the right to buy it. However, after you close it, the agent could look up who bought the property, reach out directly to them, and potentially do business with that buyer in the future. That's the case with any type of real estate deal, and honestly, that's how we find buyers to work with on deals as well. Whoever ends up buying a property, that becomes public information. But don't worry. When we provide value and build genuine relationships with our buyers, they want to continue working with us because we're adding value to their business and helping them make money. If you made it this far, then you now have everything you need to confidently use an assignment contract to wholesale real estate deals, whether it's your first deal or your next one. We covered how assignment contracts work, how to fill out the contract line by line, how to get paid your assignment fee, and how to navigate real-world situations based on questions from this amazing community. If you haven't already, make sure to download your free copy of the exact assignment contract we talked through today. You'll find the link in the description or just head over to realestateskills.com/contracts to grab it now. And if you got value from this video, do me a quick favor, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and drop a comment below. Let me know what questions you still have or what you want to see next. We read every single one. Thanks again for watching. I'm Ryan Zomorodi with Real Estate Skills. We're here to help you take the guesswork out of investing and start closing profitable real estate deals with confidence. I'll see you in the next video.